Welcome to this episode of Grow with Glow. Look, on this particular podcast, what I'm going to do is break down what we found for Geena Urango. In other words, I did the interview with Geena, and then as we went through her particular conversation, there was so much gold there. So step one, if you haven't watched it yet, check out Geena's interview. But step two, I really want to jump into what I think is the most important part of what she discussed that's often missed. If you're an athlete, if you're someone that needs to perform, even as an entrepreneur, the word energy always comes up. The more energy you have, people wanting more energy, people not having enough energy. Now, we can describe that different ways. We can say things like, I feel fatigued or I feel tired. But the truth is, it's a lack of energy. And if you want to know what energy is, by definition, it's the ability to do work. If we look at the downtime, the rest cycles, the recovery that Geena talked about, sleep is a major portion of when you get a chance to recover. For most athletes these days, I see that they overtrain. Most athletes are doing too much 6 days a week, and they don't give their body any downtime. Worse still, for many athletes, as they jump into a particular sport at an earlier and earlier age. And so a lot of times we have children that are just doing one sport for many years where there's not different movement patterns introduced to their body. If I were to say this differently, back in the day, we would call this cross-training, right? There's no cross-training anymore because so many of these athletes are jumping into a particular sport and they're just running those habits over and over. Now, while I understand this from a performance standpoint and things like shooting a free throw, you can get to the point where you can do it with your eyes closed because you know the distance, your brain remembers the movement patterns, and I do understand it. However, there is such a thing as too early and too much. And so the recipe, I think, becomes rest. A rest cycle is super important. What Geena talked about in particular was sleep. If you're not sleeping, you're not resting. That's the bottom line. If you don't have proper sleep at night, you have trouble falling asleep or staying asleep, you're not resting. And the truth is, those are all individual sleep problems. Falling asleep, staying asleep, having restful sleep. There's many different ways that we can look at this. But what I do want to do is give you some of the answers rather than talk about the problems. I want to give you some simple solutions you can use today so that when you go to sleep, your body is doing the healing. It is doing the rest and repair that it's meant to do. On the one hand, we have fight-flight, what we would call sympathetic dominance, meaning your nervous system is in overdrive. Your nervous system is in sympathetic dominance, meaning you're always being stimulated. The opposite of sympathetic is parasympathetic, which is rest, recovery, and actually regeneration. So a lot of times for women who are missing their menstrual cycles, it means they haven't had enough downtime. They haven't had the regeneration cycle because they're too much in fight-flight. And so when we really start to pick this apart, it can go all the way down to the cellular level, it can go all the way down to the hormone level of what is or is not happening in a particular athlete. When it comes to your sleep patterns, I do believe the routines before bedtime are key. And if you've ever raised a child or had a baby, you might know some of this already. Bath time, soothing, maybe there's certain lotions and smells, music, and then you tuck them in and they know it's bedtime and they go to sleep. Hopefully your kids slept. But raising 4 children of my own, I know the more we got into a routine with our kids, the better they slept. And I'm here to tell you, it's not too different for adults. If you have a routine, you get your body into it, then ultimately you'll get better sleep. I'll give you some of the science why that works, but also, I think from experience, you know it's true. Partly why this works is if you are going through a routine, there is a wind down process in the brain. The brain waves change, you're more relaxed, more sedentary, and ultimately sleep becomes very natural. However, if you incorporate things like a certain smell or aroma, or going back to the children, even things like lavender, they do have a soothing feel, but more importantly still is the association of smell. You see, smell is deeply rooted in the limbic part of the brain. It's an emotional part of the brain, and oftentimes the smell can give you an emotion. So if there is a certain smell associated with your bedtime, if you do have aromatherapy in your room as an adult, it's actually a good idea. It could be a doTERRA bottle. It could be something that you have that just creates the pattern in the brain. It's time to shut it down and go to sleep. Some simple things to not do. Don't look at your screens right before bedtime. Screen time, movie time often stimulates the brain, not to mention the difference of the blue that comes into the eyes and the blue blockers that often we need to have when it comes to the lights. Also, if we start looking at what can happen with scary movies, if a child watches a scary movie before bedtime, they have nightmares. If you watch the news or the media, you might have nightmares. Look, the point is this. If you're watching something before bedtime, on average, the subconscious mind is going to process that at least 11 times, meaning whatever you do right before bed is going into your subconscious. So you could also take advantage of this from a performance standpoint. And if you have something that you need to memorize for a college class or there's words, vocabulary, learning a second language right before bed would be a good time to put in the new words, vocabulary, so it sticks into the cognitive mind through the subconscious pathway. If you're trying to remember lines or phrases for something you've got to give as far as a presentation or a work presentation, a sales presentation the next day, before bed would be a good time to do that. But more importantly still is just get yourself in a position where you're able to sleep, rest, recover. Ideal situations, dark enough room where you cannot see your own hand in front of your face, meaning you can lay in bed and I can't see the back of my hand because it's so dark. Now, that might be difficult, but it's a goal worth achieving because when it is total darkness, it actually helps your brain shut down. When you wake up, if you can do it in the sunrise hours, 15 minutes of sunlight in the early part of the day will also stimulate your brain to wakeful cycles. The wakeful sleep cycles play off of each other, very much like the parasympathetic, sympathetic, fight, flight versus rest and repair. Either or, and you can't have both. You can't be in fight, flight, and have rest, repair, regeneration, digestion. All those things require calm in your body. When it comes to music, if you are listening to any sounds or music at night, then you want to make sure that there's no lyrics. You just want it to be nice and mellow. It could be sounds of nature. It could be ocean sounds. We talked about aromatherapy, the smell, and then also the feel of when you get into bed. What is it that's comfortable for you? Body positions. Obviously, as a chiropractor, I'm going to tell you sleeping on your stomach's horrible, but you don't always get to pick the position you sleep in. You just wake up in a funny position. But as much as you can control it, laying on your sides is obviously best. If you start laying flat on your back, you have a proper neck curvature in your neck. It's going to be really good for your airways and calm. And then if you pick a side and you go to sleep, that usually is going to be something that gets you some restful sleep throughout the night. Welcome to Grow with Glow, the show where we explore ways to stay healthy naturally and grow your influence. Today's episode is brought to you by LMNT, the clean salt electrolyte drink mix with everything you need and nothing you don't. There's no sugar, just the essentials for optimal hydration. Whether you're an athlete, busy professional, or just someone who wants to stay hydrated, LMNT is designed for you. So what sets LMNT apart? Well, it's the science-backed formulation. You see, LMNT is created by experts who understand the importance of electrolytes like sodium, potassium, and magnesium in maintaining proper hydration and supporting overall health. These electrolytes are crucial for muscle function, energy, and anything that makes LMNT stand out is its commitment to real, clean ingredients. You won't find any artificial sweeteners or flavors in here. LMNT is keto-friendly, paleo-friendly, and suitable for a variety of dietary preferences. And here's the best part. For our listeners, LMNT has a special offer. Your first purchase through the website and the link below in the show notes will get you an offer where a complimentary package is sent with the purchase of your first item. So again, use the link in the show notes, and when you make a purchase, you will get a complimentary pack at no extra fee. You're going to enjoy it, and again, it's paleo and keto friendly, keeping you hydrated. A big misconception is that if you work out before bed, you'll be more tired. Not true. You actually move and stimulate the cerebellum. When you move and stimulate the cerebellum, your brain becomes 20% more active on average. An active brain means less sleep. So again, read yourself to sleep. If you remember back to chemistry class, or maybe a class that you found boring as you read it, made you sleepy, put your eyes to work. Watching television, looking at screens and iPads is not going to be your best way to doze off. It actually stimulates the brain. And remember, if you're putting in positivity, that will be cycled 11 different times throughout the sleep, throughout the night. So put positive things into your brain. Put uplifting things or things that are important to you that you really want to drill into the psyche. And then your so much better and so much more rested when you wake up. Masks, you can use a mask. Geena mentioned that in our interview, just putting a mask on. I'll tell you, the first time I did that was actually on an airplane, and just put a mask on, put some sounds of nature in my ears, and it made such a difference. I didn't know what the people were doing around me. I didn't realize the noise that the babies were making. You just kind of have to go inward. If you travel and you're forced to perform on the road, then those conditions oftentimes you can't control. So then pack a mask, put some kind of eye cover on, earbuds, earplugs, foam in your ear, whatever it is that will help you sleep better. But oftentimes hotels will not have blackout blinds. They won't have the proper noise canceling walls. You're going to hear things down the hallway or doors being slammed. So as much as you can get yourself into that restful, sedative state, that's huge. Inflammation is a huge problem in healthcare. I think a lot of subsets of illnesses and injuries come from inflammation in the body. And while anti-inflammation is good as a reactant factor, meaning making your body deal with the inflammation, taking things for inflammation isn't my best recommendation. Where your body really starts to clear out the inflammation in the body is while you sleep, and where your body starts to clear out things in the brain is while you sleep. In other words, the brain is often described as the master controller. And when you're sleeping, it's like running the dishwasher of your computer system, and then it clears out the cache. It runs the dishwasher of the brain. So when you sleep, you actually clear out the brain activity that's unnecessary. It quiets the mind, and the next day you can put things in. Part of why sleep deprivation is so damaging and so painful is there's no storage available. There's no memory left. And so we go through the days and we can't remember where we put our keys. We have a hard time remembering, how to get somewhere on the roads when you're sleep deprived. And so I really think it speaks to the importance of that. I'm not a fan of taking medications for sleep loss. Things like Ambien, Lunesta. The known side effects are actually that they have sleep eating, sleep driving, and sleep shopping. Now, what I mean by sleep eating is people take these medications, Lunesta, Ambien, they go into a catatonic state and they start walking around their house, going to the refrigerator, and there's been many reports of people eating over 2,000 calories at night, not remembering that they packed away so many calories. I had a patient of mine that took a sleep medication, went through a red light, and didn't remember it. Now you might ask, well, how would she not remember? Because again, these medications put you in a catatonic state. So she took the medication, she went through the red light and had a photo flash from the traffic camera that caught her running the red light. She still had rollers in her hair. It was 2 a.m. and she didn't remember it all, but they had photo evidence of her going through the red light. While she didn't remember it, her 2 children in the back seat remembered it, 6 years old and 3 years old, because she actually put them in the car, and her older daughter said, "Mom, you didn't strap us in." The older daughter was angry. "You didn't strap us in." And with the photo evidence, the 6-year-old story at 2 a.m, she then understood that the medications had her sleep driving. So again, sleep eating, sleep shopping, sleep driving. And as you can imagine with online shopping, it's pretty easy to shop anytime. So at first, I thought maybe that was just an excuse that my wife was giving me. She was online shopping at night, but the truth is this is also a known side effect of these medications. So look, sleep's an inherent part of our natural cycles. It's probably one of the most under-discussed, under-described cycles. In the interview with Geena Urango, pro beach volleyball player, if you haven't watched that, do so. But she and I both agree Matthew Walker is a genius on this topic. Probably the book that changed my life 2 years ago was Why We Sleep, written by Matthew Walker. He's done more studies and more extensive research on the topic than anybody else. And if you get a chance, grab the book. It's just phenomenal. We do this podcast so that you have information that will help you naturally stay healthy. I'm not a fan of pharmaceutical products and drugs. I always question their science because let's call it what it is. All drug companies to this point operating in the U.S. are convicted felons. They fake the science, they fake the research. And so when someone says to me, trust the science. I just say, well, you're not aware of the criminal record of pharmaceutical companies. So I want to bring to you information that is cutting edge, it's relevant, and also it's been tested. If you get the chance to get the book, I think you'll find some very simple solutions, but they could have a profound impact on your health. Sleeping provides a dishwasher for the brain. Sleeping provides an anti-inflammatory process for your body. Inflammation is a natural process. Inflammation reactants produced by your body are the best way to deal with inflammation. Taking an outside anti-inflammatory doesn't teach your body how to handle the situation, and prolonged chronic inflammation is really the catalyst to many other diseases we're going to see in future conversations we will certainly have. But for today, I just want to say a big thank you to Geena Urango for taking the time to sit down and do the podcast, to share openly and honestly. She's just a really cool pioneer. She's a bit of a rebel. She's always said, I'm not the best, I'm not the biggest in my sport, but she might be the person that loves it the most. So I'm a big fan of hers. She's been a patient of mine for years, and she oftentimes gives me insight to training cycles and things she does. But I wanted to double click quickly what she and I talked about with sleep. I wanted to give you probably the best guide and recommendations, which would be a manual for sleep. And that's Matthew Walker's book, Why We Sleep. Take notes on that. Please understand how the brain and body are connected. They are never separate. And if you can implement 2 or 3 things, I know it's going to help you out. And maybe most importantly, get your children into healthy sleep habits. It's a problem that plagues most people. It's global. And oftentimes the manufactured technology things that we have are hurting us. Sleeping with your phone next to your bed, waking up and looking right at the screen. We're just overstimulated. We are dopamine hits all the time. And truth be told, we need to disconnect a little bit, shut it down. And naturally, that should be sleep first and foremost. So hope this helps you out. We'll see you on future podcasts. As we always say, this is here to keep you healthy naturally without the use of synthetic products or drugs. And if we can do that in a very simple format, then mission accomplished. Hey, if you enjoyed today's podcast, drop a comment down below. Don't forget to click the like and share button. And if you don't want to miss these future episodes, hit subscribe as well. We'll see you on the future Grow with Glow podcast.